Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich.
And thank you, Rabbi. It's good to be here, and we have a really special guest for us. We got like a 3-in-1 in this guest. Owen Smith, welcome back to the Jewish View.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be back, gentlemen.
Owen, you know, you're the producing artistic director at Park Playhouse. You're also at the Palace Theater as the
managing director at the Palace.
And then you have a connection with Cohoes Music Hall.
Yeah, this year the Palace took on the management of the Cohoes Music Hall, which is a beautiful old theater. The fourth oldest currently operating music hall in the country.
Really, I didn't
which
know
is really
that.
incredible.
Mark and I were there last year for a concert. So.
That Troy Music Hall.
This is Cohoes.
This is Cohoes, yeah.
Cohoes.
Right
Really?
across the
And I
river.
haven't been there. We're going to have to go there, Mark.
We will. 1874 it was
That's
built.
correct.
Really?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it's a
Almost Civil
beautiful
War area.
acoustics?
It is. It's acoustically very well tuned. It's in great shape. Our team did a lot of work to restore the building, which had sat empty for the better part of 2 years, and prior to that had been used as a musical theater venue. And what we're trying to do is bring a diversity of entertainment, concerts, comedy, musicals and plays, a little bit of everything to really try to broaden the reach of that venue.
And I understand you're doing quite well with that. I mean, it's a good response.
So far, hey, in a first year, we've had over 7,000 people just in our first 6 months pass through the doors of the hall. So from our perspective, that's a success.
It is.
Success. And you know, the city of Cohoes brought the Palace team in very specifically to try to bring life back into that building and to get people out on the streets of Cohoes. And you know, it's such a beautiful downtown there along Remsen Street, and there are so many development projects happening in the city right now. So to have a music hall at the center of that, that's active, that's bringing people downtown, filling the bars and restaurants, it makes a big difference.
You know, we had the head of the Proctors, and they say that was the center of building up Schenectady. So it's probably the same thing with you. They
No
say
question.
Cohoes, we had the mayor of Cohoes here, and, you know, he says just booming. And, you know, you have to have the arts. People don't understand that. But I was going to ask you that, you know, the budget for the arts, and people don't give that much money. The government are cutting down. Do you have government money to help it out? I mean,
Well,
I'm sure
in
to
some
renovate
cases,
that Cohoes must cost a fortune.
Well, you know, the city of Cohoes is, I think, you know, Mayor Morse and his team
Sure.
really understand the value that that hall brings to their community. And so they have been willing to dedicate money to the operation of that hall, to the restoration of that hall. And so I think it's a unique example of a government that is taking that step to make sure that their arts and culture district is booming.
Do you know where your audience comes from? Are they mostly Cohoesiers?
You know, a lot of the audience is, but we've been very glad, and we can track, of course, through Ticketmaster and through our various channels where our audience is coming from. There's a significant portion of folks who are coming from a wide variety of communities. You know, and I've had people come up to me at the hall who have never been there before. One gentleman who was up from Rutland, Vermont, who saw that there was the Tower of Power was playing at the music hall, and he drove all the way down for that. So, you know, the Palace team has a lot of reach. We have a marketing channel that's pretty robust. You know, it's a 2,800 seat venue in Albany, so we have a big database of folks that we can reach out to, and we're leveraging that to make sure that the music hall gets as many visits per year as possible, even beyond that Cohoes community.
Okay, now I want to talk to you about the Palace Theater.
Sure.
One of the loveliest places, and I understand you're going in an expansion.
We are.
Underway to have an expansion.
That's correct. This past summer, we announced a vision for what we think the future of that building ought to be. You know, the Palace has a wonderful programming calendar. My colleague Holly Brown and I and our team have been lucky over the last 7 years to build that programming there. You know, in 2011, there were 72 event nights at the Palace Theater. This past year, there were about 165. But we're reaching a sort of ceiling in terms of the number of things that we can fit into that theater, because the truth is that since it was built in 1931, there really hasn't been any structural change to that building to bring it up to the current industry standard.
Well, that's what Proctor's problem was.
It was.
And that's why Proctor's had to go through their renovation.
Correct.
Over a decade ago.
Sure.
But this is what you're going to be able to make it, the backstage and the parts that we can't see, you know, the dressing rooms more accommodating and everything. Is that what you? Is
That's
that
exactly
part of it?
right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're looking at taking the back wall of the theater down and extending the stage by about 20 feet and adding a hallway for artists to get from one side of the stage to the other without having to go down through the maze of the basement. And to your point, making the dressing rooms more accommodating. You know, for us at the Palace, certainly our customers are the patrons that are buying tickets, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are serving the artists who are playing the theater and the promoters who are bringing acts in. We want to make it a comfortable and an easy experience for them to get shows in and out of the hall. And you know, we have for a loading dock an 8-foot by 8-foot door on Pearl Street, just coming off of the street on Pearl Street with a little ramp down onto stage level. And the truth is that, you know, for the kinds of things that we bring into the theater, even now, that can be very, very challenging. Yeah, for sure.
And what you want to do, you know, what your intention is when you have these larger performances, you need more than just a ramp.
That's right.
And you don't want to necessarily go down in the basement.
That's exactly right. So the vision that we've announced calls for the addition of not only an expansion of the current stage house, but a loading dock that would get the trucks off the street, give them a bay that they can pull into underground.
Get them off the street.
With a freight elevator. But not only that, the addition of a 600-seat second performing space that would allow us to bring in different kinds of acts that wouldn't fit in the 2,800-seat theater.
And that's going to go towards Wilson?
That's correct. We've purchased the land all the way back to Wilson Street from the building because the theater's been pretty successful the last few years. So the nonprofit entity that I work for, the Palace Performing Arts Center, purchased that land so that we could be ready to do this project. And you know, not only are we adding that 600-seat theater, but also quite a bit of arts education space, a video post-production studio. And our goal really is not just to have this be up to industry standard and have it be a theater and a performing arts center that Albany can be proud of, but also to make it a community center, a place where people can come and host meetings and events and different kinds of things to, you know, make it a place that people feel at home in.
And in the lobby, I noticed you renamed the concession stand.
That happened some time ago. Our chairman, Alan Goldberg, he has been so supportive of our efforts there for quite a long time.
Yesterday. I mean, I'm just saying,
but yes, it is.
Since you've been on, it's been renamed.
It's Goldberg's Palace Pub. But actually, what's interesting is that we have that sign there for him, and of course it'll come back. But we're looking at blowing through that wall as well and extending out into a small courtyard area that exists right now so that we can expand our lobby as well and add more concession services, a patron lounge, and crucially add an elevator. You know, this building is, again, 1931, really hasn't been updated, and it's not as accessible as it ought to be to people with disabilities, people of advanced age who may want to sit upstairs, but who can't get there right now because the only way to get up there is to climb quite a flight of stairs. So we're looking at adding an elevator and making it as accessible as possible.
And you do get the older crowds there,
sure,
especially with the Albany Symphony when they play.
No doubt about it.
You certainly get the older crowds. What's your...
No, Mark, you know, I've talked to many people, but you know, you say older crowd because, listen, let's face it, that older people have a little bit more money, they're retired, and they work their whole life. You know, it's an issue of getting the younger people into the arts. You know, when you go there, you don't see...
No doubt, but I was also talking about the indigent and
Well,
people
no, I'm just saying.
who are in wheelchairs and who come in from the Center for the Disabled. Let's say they have a day at the theater.
Sure.
And they have a problem with...
Well, look, I think from our perspective, you want the theater to be as accessible as possible to everyone, to as broad a swath of the population as you can make it, whether it's young folks who you're trying to get in there with, you know, sort of dynamic younger artists, new acts, or whether it's folks that are coming to enjoy the Albany Symphony and maybe have been subscribers their whole lives, and to your point, they're retired and this is something they really look forward to. We want to make sure it's accessible no matter what. You know, we have a really robust school time series where we bring productions that are produced in-house and bring school children in from all across the region.
So that's what I was asking, bringing the youth.
And you know, in those cases, we will get folks from you know, Centers for the Disabled, and you know, you need to have as much space for wheelchairs as you can possibly manage, because we don't ever want to have to turn anyone away due to a need for access.
And they don't always want to be put in the back
That's
of the
right.
theater, you know.
That's right.
So I've noticed that with a few of the performances that I've been to.
That's right. You know, our goal is to make sure that when we go into this expansion project, that every area of the theater, every ticketed seating area has accessible seating available in it. That's the goal, and in fact, that's exactly what the plan calls for. So it's quite a big vision. It's a project that will ultimately be a phased project.
How many years?
Probably it'll take, once we shovel hits
decade?
ground, no, I would think it could take between 5 and 7 years to get it all done, but a lot of it depends on the support of the community.
The better part of a decade.
Yeah,
I'd
the
say.
better part, sure.
But you had another plan where the building is what, owned by the city of Albany, and you were going to sell it for $1, or
Well,
something was going to be sold for $1?
you know, there's,
what was? I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but I
No.
think it's important to at least
Sure, yeah.
vet it out.
It's the fact of the matter is that the building is owned by the city of Albany. It's municipal property. But there's a nonprofit corporation, again, the Palace Performing Arts Center, Inc., who has a long-term lease to operate the theater, and we've been doing that for decades now. And from our perspective, before we can raise the kind of money that's needed to make a vision like this come to reality, we really have to own the building and have it on our balance sheet. You know, funders want to see that you have control of your own destiny. And so, you know, there's a lot of, when something like this comes to the forefront, you get a lot of misinformation. There was never any kind of proposal to sell the building for $1. Our goal is to work with the city to transfer the building for a nominal fee. Now, look, from our perspective, this is an investment that, even if we were asking for $1, might make sense for the city. We're not. But we think that this is something that, you know, the economic impact of it in the long term will be so beneficial to Albany and our taxpayers that it makes sense. But we've put a proposal in front of the Common Council and the Mayor of Albany requesting transfer of the building for an ongoing payment over 30 years of about $750,000. So
each year?
No, over the term of that 30-year period.
you can always hope.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I wish that the Palace was in a position to solve Albany's financial problem, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to solve that on the back of the arts, and we wouldn't want it.
That was
But you said
really a
quarter of a-
distorted news though over here, because I heard on the radio, it
called
was
fake news.
the
It's
city
news
of Albany, was throwing away they had this a $10 million building, and they're selling it for $1. What a chutzpah.
Well,
That's what I heard on the radio.
You know, Rabbi, I suppose that at the end of the day, everyone's perception is their reality. So what we did was we took the steps to make sure that we had real, factual information to back up what our claim was. And our claim was that this building would be better taken care of and the taxpayers would be better served with it being transferred to the nonprofit. So here's what we did. We did 2 independent appraisals of the building. There are a lot of people who are out there saying, well, the building's worth $13 million. Couldn't be further from the truth. 2 independent appraisals that revealed a valuation of somewhere in the vicinity of $500,000 to $1 million.
Really?
And then did a structural engineering study that revealed that the building, as it currently stands, needs over $4 million in repairs over the next 15 years just to stay operational. Now remember, right now it's a city property. The city of Albany and our taxpayers, that we're liable for those repairs. So from our perspective, by transferring the building, not only are we making a financial contribution to the city in an ongoing way, but we're also removing from the taxpayers' backs a liability for what is a building that needs a lot of attention.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. That's why you need the Jewish view. I mean, no, it
That's
clarifies
right.
things. It
that's right.
makes it looks like, the city's selling out and they're getting a good deal.
Well, the good news is that we've had a lot of really productive meetings, not just with Mayor Sheehan, but with just about every member of the Common Council now. We've had the opportunity in public forums and in one-on-one sessions when appropriate to sit down and really talk about our plans, talk about what it is we want to do. And the Common Council is right. They have constituents that they're serving. They're right to ask the questions. But our assumption, our belief, our faith is that ultimately they'll make what we think is the right decision for the taxpayers, which is to invest in this landmark theater that is at the heart of Albany. There's so many development projects happening around it. And, remember, the Palace Theater sits in a really unique location. It sits in a location that is really at the center of a lot of neighborhoods that need attention and that deserve attention in our city.
Let me ask you, $4 million structural damage, right? I mean, can it even be fixed?
Oh, sure. In fact, all of all of that would be taken care of as part of the expansion project. The building needs a new roof. With the kind of expansion that we're doing, that's something that's going to get done. The building needs a complete overhaul of a plumbing system that hasn't been touched in any significant way since the 1930s. That's going to happen.
Still using coal?
We're not. No, the building does have an HVAC system that was installed a few years ago, but again, crucially, there are no controls on that system. It's either on or off.
Okay.
And so, again, there are things that we can do to help make the building more comfortable, more welcoming, and we're looking forward to it.
I also wanted to ask you about, the $4 million. I mean, if the city took out a bond to fix the building when they own it, there would be a tax-free bond that they could pay back
Conceivably.
over years.
Conceivably.
Okay? And why wouldn't, if you take out the bond or you take out a loan as a not-for-profit corporation, you're going to have to pay interest on that.
Well, our hope is that in the long run, we don't have to bond much of the project. There are opportunities for funding available from historic tax credits, state funding that's been available through the Regional Economic
Yeah,
Development
but in
Council
order to get a
cycles.
tax credit, you need to be able to spend the money to get the credit.
Well, there's all different ways that we can slice it, Mark, but ultimately, right now, what we're focused on is one step at a time. The first step is we got to get our hands on the building. We have already identified several $1 million in funding that will immediately become available to us. And in fact, there are people both on our board and in the community who have indicated an immediate willingness to make major leadership gifts to what will ultimately be a capital campaign.
Beautiful. I know it's not me. I wish it
Well,
could be.
we're going to come for you eventually.
Okay, but I wish it could be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're publicizing on the Jewish views, so that's helpful also. People help in whatever way they can.
You know, the
That's
way we
right.
look at it, anything worth doing is worth doing right,
No,
and anything worth
absolutely.
doing is a challenge, and we truly believe that this is worth doing.
And you're how old now?
I'm 34.
Okay, so by the time you're 40, this should be complete.
I hope so.
This
But
would
let
be
me
a
ask
good
you,
40th birthday
It's
present.
a
It
little
would be.
easier for you to get acts, go back to the Palace Theater, because we're so close to New York. Does
Sure.
that come into it? I mean, it's just really a hop, skip,
No
and a
doubt
jump
about
for
it. I mean, if you
anybody.
think about it, we sort of sit it as it relates to touring calendars and touring routing. We sit really between New York, Boston, Montreal. So, there are a lot of acts that come through that we're able to get. Chick Corea and Bella Fleck are going to be playing a concert at the Palace that's going to be announced soon. I guess I'm breaking
Okay.
that news
There
here
we
on the
go,
Jewish
yeah.
View. But, that's an act that's only touring for just a few months. We're getting it here in Albany. The Last Waltz, the celebration of the band, Garth Hudson, one of the original members of the band, he came to this theater, one of only 2 theaters in the country that he played. So yeah, to a certain extent, I think where Albany sits really does help us with the routing of these tours.
And that's the same reason for the success of the TU Center.
Sure.
The success of Proctor's and other venues, entertainment venues in the city of Albany. I mean, they do have, they have the same promotion marketing aspects that you pick up on also.
Yeah.
But you're also
So-
talking about a summer crowd also, I would think. The summer crowd around here I don't know the numbers.
Well, it
but-
doubles, but you know what?
Yeah, so
in
that's
a lot of
important.
areas, but you have so many other things. SPAC picks up. I mean, your time is in the winter, right?
Well, the Palace is generally busiest between the months of September and May.
Right.
We have seen since we've installed a true HVAC system and got the building air conditioned, we've had 2 or 3 concerts a month in July and August over the summer months these last few years. But people, in a lot of cases, we do have the Saratoga Performing Arts Center.
Yeah.
We've got Park Playhouse. We've got Rockin' on the River. We've got Alive at 5. There's a lot of outdoor events, and those do get a lot of attention during
Sure
the
they
summer.
do.
And,
And why compete when you got these other months that you do just as well, and now you could use the summer months or the warmer
I'm
months
just thinking
to,
if a person
to
wants to
retool.
come to the arts,
Yeah,
hey, here's
but-
another option.
Well,
But
I
here's
think
so
part of
many
it is
other things.
part of it is getting creative. So one of the things that we do now during the summer, and again, our goal being to make this building really a community center that's driving people to interesting creative experiences. We're going into our 3rd annual edition of our Summer in the City movie series. So every Tuesday during the summer months, through the support of organizations like Albany Medical Center, through CEFCU, we've been able to have the theater opened up to children from the local neighborhoods or from around the region to come in and watch free family movies. So, whether it's animated pictures or other kinds of family films, they come in, they get to get out of the heat, come in and watch a movie free of charge, and we've attached educational programming to that as well. So, for instance, last year, our major sponsor, Albany Medical Center, had nutrition seminars for young kids before the movie. It's a great program. We had over 6,000 kids come in and
That's
take
a lot.
advantage of free movies. So I think part of it is looking at your calendar and figuring out, okay, hey, we're a little quiet now during
Yeah,
this period of
right.
time. What can we do to benefit the community during that
Sure.
quiet time?
That's not competing, that's in
That's
addition
right.
to.
Yeah, and
what's going on,
we
yeah.
a couple of times last summer, I had people come up to me at the end of the free summer movie and say, "We're coming to Park Playhouse tonight." And so to know that they could go to a free movie at the Palace in the morning, and then head over to Washington Park and see a live Broadway-style musical free of charge, that's a pretty unique thing for the capital city
No,
to be
it
able to
is.
tout.
And it's a great segue, and it's a great addition, but it's a great segue into my next point. But I wanted to bring up the Park Playhouse, and I want to come back to the Palace Theater later because you have a lot of educational programming over at the Palace.
We do.
And the Park Playhouse also has I guess, a couple of plays for adults, but you also add a children's oriented play.
Sure, sure.
And
Well, at
so-
Park Playhouse, to a certain extent, we see everything we do as educational. Because whether you are 5 years old or 50 years old or 105 years old, you can come to Park Playhouse absolutely free of charge and be exposed to the performing arts. There are people at Park Playhouse every night of the summer who have never seen a piece of theater before. There are young people there who are seeing their very first piece of live theater. So even if it's not a hands-on arts education program, we really see so much of what we do as being educational and benefiting the community. But we do have, our first play in the summer is always fully professional cast from the local area, from New York, from the country wide. Professional musicians, professional technicians and designers. The second play in our season features teen students from our Park Playhouse 2 program.
Right.
They'll often have adults working alongside them. The musicians continue to be local professionals who are being paid, and the technicians and the designers are paid, but these are students who go through a 4-week training program in advanced aspects of the performing arts and the art of theater. And then we've added over the last couple of years an additional program called Park Playhouse Kids, where 8 to 12-year-olds can perform in a production either at the Palace or now at the Cohoes Music Hall for a short period of time during the summer after a 3-week training program that's more focused on beginner activities.
So this summer at Park Playhouse at Washington Park, what's the first
You looking for another
play?
scoop over here?
Two
Another
shows.
scoop.
So in July we have our professional musical, which is going to be Ragtime, which is based on the E.L. Doctorow novel of the
Right.
same name.
James Cagney is the
That's who it was in the movie. That's right.
That's
we were
right.
thinking about that before the
James
show, right?
Cagney, yes.
Well, Ragtime is really a fascinating story. So it weaves together the story of 3 families at the turn of the last century, at the turn of the 20th century, in New York City and around New York City. A white family that lives in New Rochelle, a African-American family that lives in Harlem, and a Latvian immigrant family coming to the city and living on the Lower East Side. And, the play addresses topics that, unfortunately, are in today's political climate, whatever your politics may be, there's no doubt that there's a lot of resonance when you're talking about things like racial inequality, anti-immigrant sentiment, and a lack of equality in the financial system.
And you could also say pro-legal immigrant, because the Latvians were here legally. And in today's climate, in political climate, they talk about the illegal immigrants.
Sure.
So that's the difference. So
I
I just want to
understand.
make that
No,
point.
it's a fair
That's all.
point.
But
It's
I
a
don't want
fair
to get
point.
into the political side of it either.
We're in
But
the arts
I
here,
just
not
wanted
the
to-
politics here.
So we got Ragtime, which is a phenomenal book, play, movie. I mean, it was all over. I mean, it really
It's basically a history
transcends-
lesson for people to
Right.
come and see.
And it transcends all media. I mean,
does.
It really does.
It
So-
does, and the score, the Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty, who wrote the score to the musical, did a marvelous job. I mean, this is a play that's been on Broadway now twice, and I've seen it both times. And from my estimation, it has one of the most beautiful scores out there, just soaring. And it's one of those musicals where it feels like song after song keeps coming and hitting you, and it's overwhelming in a way. And it's a big show. We're casting 31 people in it. And so it's going to be an interesting and fun challenge for us, but we're really excited. It feels very timely. And this is our 29th year. We're ready to tackle something big like that, and we're going to do it. And then in August, we have The Music Man, which again is a
like that.
similar era of American history, a sort of a lighter side of Americana perhaps, but really just a fun show, songs that people know.
From children to adults
That's
can
right.
both enjoy it, whereas Ragtime, the children might not get the nuances.
Sure, they might
of that.
they might enjoy
So-
the music, they might enjoy the dancing, but our word to parents on that one is that Ragtime is a show that has racially insensitive language, and we want to make sure that people are prepared for that when they decide whether or not they're going to bring their kid.
Absolutely.
But Music Man, then you say the second half is only by youth?
Yeah,
That's
Music Man
youth.
is a show that will feature principally and maybe entirely, depending on how the auditions go, your local teens.
We did get 76 trombones.
Believe it or not, last year we had, for our youth programs in the summer, we had over 130 kids audition.
Really?
So finding 76 trombone players shouldn't be a challenge under those circumstances.
So how many cast members are you?
In the Music
getting
Man,
for
there
the-
could be anywhere between 30 and 40. A big part of the sort of thought process for us is, what kids come out and audition, and who do we think, we want to serve as many kids as we can
Sure.
without overloading ourselves to the point where the kids aren't getting the best possible education experience. But the good news is that we also have, as I say, this Park Playhouse Kids program,
Yes.
which this year will perform at the Cohoes Music Hall, and they're doing a junior version of Disney's The Lion King, which will be really, really fun for kids to work on. It's a musical that obviously is beloved on Broadway, and a lot of kids have seen.
Costume.
Oh yeah, we're excited about
Big
that.
on costumes.
We work with the Costumer in Schenectady, which is an organization that we're lucky to have here in the Capital Region. They do work nationally. And actually, when I was over there last summer picking up costumes for our production of Chicago, I saw that they were building their sets of costumes for The Lion King, because those royalties, the rights to do that show, were just about to become available, and they were prepared for that. Some beautiful work that they did.
Wow, that's great. So now I want to go back to.
Well, just before,
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
the
Sure,
Park
sure.
Playhouse, again, I don't know, I'm always thinking about money, but you can't do anything without a
What's
budget.
your budget for Park Playhouse?
About $625,000.
And that's, but you're asking for free admission, so then that's all.
Well, we
But they-
subsidize our
Donation.
operation in a couple of different ways. First of all, we do have a section of about 400 seats on the ground level that are reserved seats. Now, they're still very inexpensive when you look at what not only the professional theaters, but even some of the community theaters are charging. We're only charging between $16 and $24 to sit down on that ground level. But of course, there's 1,500 free seats. We want them to be as full as possible every single night, and it's tough, to do a show at that sort of Broadway style and as close to Broadway quality as we can get it. We have to really aggressively fundraise in the community, and so we're lucky to have a significant base of corporate sponsors,
Yeah, I mean,
foundation
that's
sponsors.
grown.
It has.
Your corporate sponsorship has grown over the years.
Well, in 2011, we lost the funding of the City of Albany. The City Arts Grant program went away. And we lost about the same amount of money as did the Palace and Cap Rep and the Albany Symphony. The difference is that at the time, Park Playhouse was operating on about a $350,000 budget, where some of those other organizations operate on $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. So apples to apples in terms of the amount of money that was lost, but apples to oranges in terms of the impact on our budget. But it forced us
As a percentage basis.
Sure,
yeah.
sure. But it forced us to get out into the community, really tell our story, explain to the public why it's so important to have a free, accessible outdoor theater in the summer, and people have responded in kind. Not just corporations, but there are a number of individuals in the community who step up and write a big check because they believe this is good for the community.
And you have the right people explaining it to them.
We hope so.
Yeah.
We've got a really great board of directors who help me to advocate for the organization and tell the organization's story. And I could say the same thing with the Palace Theater, a wonderful board of directors who really understands the impact of that venue on the capital city and who understands why it is that we want to
So-
take it to the next level.
So tell us, I know who they are, but tell us who the top three board members.
Sure.
I can't say the top three. I'll just list a few.
Okay.
I Park
Alan
Playhouse. Well, the Palace. Yeah. Alan Goldberg is the chairman of the board, along with Steve Baboulis, who's our vice chair.
Channel 13.
Of Channel 13. Steve Fisher is our treasurer.
Steve Fisher.
And we've gotten some great, Kevin O'Connor and Tom Deammer joined our board. Dominic Pernomo joined our board. It's really Michelle Vennard from the County Convention and Visitors Bureau, Marilyn Pendergast from UHY. I mean, I could go on and on. This is a really wonderful group of people who
I
it's
was
a growing
looking
group.
At Alan Goldberg and Steve Fisher for obvious reasons.
Sure,
This
yeah.
is the Jewish view after all.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So,
Well, the
I
Jewish
wanted to-
people are always very charitable with the arts.
Oh, without
I
a
mean, always
doubt
see
about
their,
No
their
doubt
names
about it.
are always up there.
And for Park Playhouse, Alan Lobel is on our board and has been just a wonderful supporter.
friends with him.
Rabbi Scott Speen was on our board for many years, and Benita Zahn, who actually not only is the vice president of Park Playhouse's board, but who's going to appear in Ragtime. She's going to be playing the role of the anarchist Emma Goldman. So it'll be an interesting challenge for her, and she'll do fantastic.
well, you should get her to also be a news reporter.
Hey, Benita she's a reporter and an
I
anchor
know.
first and foremost, but she gets the plug in for us whenever she can, and we
No,
appreciate
she
it.
does, absolutely. But I know, like, BBL Construction has been a big supporter, as the Key Bank has also. I mean, you've really been...
No doubt about it. I have to give a
Fortunate,
nod to Park Playhouse board member James Barba, for this president and CEO of Albany Medical Center. The Albany Med has taken a leadership role. They've been our single biggest sponsor for 6 years now. We call it the Albany Medical Center stage, and we call it that for a reason, because without their support, we'd
There
be
would be no
toast.
stage.
That's right.
Okay, so let me ask you this other
A few
question.
more minutes over here, Mark.
STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Sure.
Shouldn't it be STEAM
Of course.
and
I mean,
add the arts? Because in the arts, you do have an element of science and technology, engineering and math.
There's no doubt about it.
Especially with set design
Oh,
and
well,
with music.
lighting and
Lighting.
audio engineering. I mean,
I
these
mean,
are things that you
it
you
all
need
fits
mathematics.
in.
But I come at that from a different standpoint. I mean, from my perspective, you have the best scientists in the world, the best mathematicians in the world. But if you don't teach them to communicate, if you don't teach them how to connect outside of themselves and explain their theories and pass on the knowledge that they have, you have trouble. So I think that from my perspective, that A in STEAM is all about teaching people to communicate. That's the important part.
Well, this has been so informative. Is there anything else you wanted to mention that we didn't get a chance
You know,
to
I would
bring
just
up?
simply say parkplayhouse.com, the
Yeah.
palacealbany.org, the
Plug
Cohoes
away.
Music Hall.org. I mean, there are websites where you can go to find out about everything going on.
Now, the Cohoes Music Hall, you had to put the in there because there's another Cohoes Music
Just
Hall?
a previous tenant who still had that URL.
Yeah,
so
it's still, there's not another Cohoes.
no,
okay.
no. But you know,
Well,
all
Mark, we're set up to
had to
go
ask,
over here.
I
No, I mean, no,
I just
I
wanted
have
to
to go
ask
with the
about
arts
that.
with
Just-
Mark.
there
We
you
have to
go.
see it for ourselves. But listen, Owen, you're doing incredible work, and like Mark's saying, but I say you also. It's not just all right. There's not a few thousands of people see the arts. It's really a centerpiece of any community. You have to have the arts. You can't just have the money and the production and the highways. Arts is an integral part of any community, and you're it. And we just wish you the best of
Well, I
success.
Doing
couldn't
yeoman's
agree
work.
more, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Mark.
Really great
Thank you.
having you here. Thank you for taking the time.
My
I know how
pleasure.
busy you are. So
My pleasure.
Keep continued success.